Hey guys, today me and Roger will go over some of the fights in Sepulcher of the first ones and what our perspective looked like from a Hunter POV, why we chose the different talents that we chose, the different builds, whatnot. So this is the first of our Hunter podcast.
But before we start, I want to give a big shout out to Curseforge for sponsoring today's video. With the Curseforge desktop app, you can manage, download, and update all of your favorite add-ons in one place. And most importantly, Curseforge makes sure that the creators are properly supported. Click the link in the description below to download the desktop app today.
And yeah, we're gonna start off with the Vigilant Guardian, the hardest boss of the raid. Roger, what did you think about this boss?
Yeah, so as you said, I mean, it is the year of the spear right now. And we did get to play all the specs of Hunter for, I think, the first time. So it was a very exciting tier. Vigilant Guardian, obviously the very first, very easy. I think the best spec overall is definitely MM in this fight. You can play survival, of course, as well. But a lot of the times I feel like if the survival and MM are both equally good, it's better to just play a range spec. What did you think about it? I mean, obviously we one-shotted it, so it wasn't really a big deal.
No, I mean, I agree. I was playing a Korain, what's it called? So Korain Night Fae marksmanship on this fight. You get a lot of first strike value on this boss because of the continuous adds that spawns all the time. You can also play survival here. Maybe go for a what's it called, a Curian build if you want to go for max output. You can also go survival Dreamweaver and get the pot center. I mean, I went for a little bit more of the greedier build, playing Korain, so did not have pot center here, but it is a pretty easy boss. Like you said, if MM is equally good or very slightly behind survival, then just picking the range spec on a boss that you go into the first time, I believe you one-shot this fight, like you said, then it's a lot easier to just jump in, play the range spec, and just have better overview and just easier to deal with the mechanics. Was my mindset on this boss.
I actually played BM, I think, in this first kill just because I was doing the traps on the ground, similar to Paintsmith. So we're like, well, it's the same kind of thing. Let's do it like we did it last time. But you really don't need to, right? It's not a hard thing. I think we have healers now doing it. So yeah, I mean, this boss, play whatever, I would say. But yeah, I would say Korain is a good choice because the adds are the hard part of the fight. The last phase is very easy. And so moving on to Skullets, the second boss that we went at. And here, again, it feels like a fight where you can kind of play all three specs. You just need single target damage. I mean, our specs are, it's not like there is a vastly superior single target spec compared to the rest. So you can kind of, I would say, play whatever is comfortable.
Like you said, we decided to just play BM here. It was an easy boss, and you had to deal with the the stacking debuff mechanic by being one of the three furthest players away from the boss. And in hindsight, you can easily play MM here. There's not super much heavy movement, only on the wretches and going out for the debuffs. So you can play survival, you can play MM, you can play BM. Like Roger said, you can go for comfort here. We went range simply because we need range soakers, and that's why we played BM here. Again, it's the easier of the three specs. And if the boss fight is easy to play, then just went for the easier choice here on some of the early bosses. So that was the thought behind playing Beastmaster in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this boss, we managed to down it very quickly. So I think we also don't have too much to talk about it from a progression perspective. So let's just move on to the first boss that did not just go down after 2 tries, which is the Hogner. Like, how do you call it usually, Mike?
I call it a Dausigne, but I know that is for sure the wrong pronunciation.
This boss was really cool because we had prepared a lot of different strategies for it, and Hunter actually has a amazing tool. So you can play Venthyr, which is what a lot of classes do, so that you can port over the rings that the boss spawns, especially later on. But by playing Hunter and using both the conduit and the talent to reduce the cooldown of Aspect of the Turtle, we were able to play Night Fae and rotate between the Night Fae Blink and Turtle, because both of those with a 2-minute cooldown, you need one every 1 minute, so it worked out perfectly to immune or bypass basically all of that damage. So that's why
from the rings, yeah.
So that's why we ended up playing actually Night Fae in that fight, which was really cool.
I agree. Having the option, like you said, to be able to play between Venthyr and Night Fae. Of course, Night Fae is the better choice here, also because you do have 2-target cleave. We did not have antlers though back in the day because we did not have double legendary this early on, but you will have some antler value on the ad spawns in this fight, being able to cleave onto the boss as well as onto the ad, which makes it for the better Covenant choice for this fight. So instead of playing Venthyr, so you have more DPS, and in my opinion, I think this Soul-Shaped Blink is easier to do than the timing of the Venthyr port. So I think it's also the easier option to play out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of spec, we went again with Beast Mastery on this one. Again, simply because when you're progressing a fight, it's a lot of times, unless there is a big reason not to go Beast Mastery, if the damage is roughly equal, at least on the boss, because of course you can cleave more on the ad with the other specs, but it wasn't very necessary, then BM is definitely a great choice. You don't need to focus as much on your rotation or your movement, and you can play the mechanics. So that's what we went for. And another great thing about going Night Fae in this fight is you get the Dreamweaver pod, the pod tender. A lot of times during progress, things will go wrong, and having that essentially free combat res is huge. And yeah, that worked out really, really well on that fight. I think we were both alive at the end of the first kill, even though everyone else was kind of dying. So moving on then now to the next fight we went at, which is Artificer, who in hindsight, I think like right now, it's maybe a little bit easier than the Hogner, just because it has been nerfed quite a bit as well. But when we were progressing the fight, of course, you need to get used to the timings and all that. Now, this is a fight where I would say marksmanship is definitely the play to go for. You can go also survival, but we did play MM back in progression. How did that fight feel for you as a hunter?
Well, this is one of the fights where, okay, this is a hunter fight. Bring them in so we can kill this boss. That this works out perfectly for the hunter cooldown, especially in progress. The platforms is where we really shine, and also where we used our big cooldowns. So as you might know, on Artificer, there is 3 platforms in 3 different phases where you need to jump over and you need to clear off the ads in time. If you do not, you simply wipe on the boss. And no one has better AoE burst on cleave. Of course, we're talking like 5, 6, like 4 targets is perfect for antlers. We didn't have that back here, but up to like 6 target cleave hunters, like MM hunter is incredibly strong. And I do think that for this fight specifically, marksmanship is the better option for this purpose. As you might know, survival also really good on cleave, but there will be some RNG elements to survival, whether or not you get bomb procs. And that's the annoying part about the playing survival in this fight. Marksmanship will not have that RNG, which makes it, in my opinion, the better choice on this fight in general, for sure.
100%. And I think what you said is very important, especially for the platforms, because if you do not make the DPS check, you just wipe. So having more consistent damage is very good for progression. So you avoid a lot of the RNG and potential wipes. So it felt really good. The cooldowns also were pretty well timed. Now on farm, because we have more damage, it's a little bit more awkward, I guess, with the cooldowns. Sometimes you need to hold your 2-minute cooldowns to make sure you have them ready when you need to. But it worked out pretty nicely when the raid came out. Because you could use them on the pool and then have them ready for the second platform and then the third platform. That was really nice.
I was just gonna add to, like, nowadays, if you do want to play like MM on this fight, there is one thing with the extra DPS power that you now have with double legendaries and potentially more item level from the catalyst and whatnot. You might see yourself as a hunter if you do jump up on the second platform. If you're assigned to the second platform, is that you will not have your 2-minute cooldowns. I remember I was assigned to second and third, and because you push between the different phases too quickly now, you will not have your 2 minutes for every platform, which is why you might see some hunters play Curian nowadays. So you have the shorter CD. That can potentially be something to look at if you're a hunter out there, but your raid group does have too much DPS in order for you to have your 2 minutes ready. You could look at Curian to reduce it. I remember on farm raids, if you were assigned to the second one as a hunter, you could not even use your 2-minute cooldown on pull on the boss, and you would literally sit there and hold your 2-minute CD for 1 minute and 45 seconds, which is not super fun. But for the kill, it was the best option anyway, because the boss damage in phase 1 is not really needed. So that would kind of be one of those things where you just take the shitty job and just deal with it, because it just makes it just kill the boss that way.
Yeah, another thing to be told about going MM instead of survival here is because the spark that jumps throughout the whole raid one by one, you don't want to have too many melee, because then it creates a big clump of people that you will have to just step away from the boss, basically, which is fine as survival, but it's still not ideal, right? Like you'd rather have more range to freely spread out around the room. That's another like small benefit. And also like a really good thing about this boss is having the ability to just turtle through the rings. So that is this fight is excellent for Hunter. I think you can bring as many as you can and it will still be great to have them. You don't lose anything. Moving on from this boss, let's talk about Pantheon, the prototype Pantheon. Now, this boss was when you really started to see the Hunter starting to pop off, I would say. It's again a boss where you can play MM or survival. We chose to play marksmanship during progression on this fight, but survival, I think, is slightly better. Contingent to the part where you do need to also get a bit lucky with the procs. So it's a bit more RNG, but I think survival, because it's extended period of cleaving, will come out ahead most of the time. But speaking about our progression on this fight, I think it was the correct choice to go marksmanship because of the fact that we needed a bit more damage on the ritualists.
Exactly. It was mainly ritualist damage, being able to swap to the range that's far away, if necessary. Hunter has also been like even stronger since the day of our kill here, with the implementation of antlers, which is perfect for this boss fight. You have 4 target cleave in the last burn phase, and you have 2 to 3 target cleave in phase 1 from the ritualist spawning on top of the main bosses, which makes Hunter probably, together with Warlock, the best output class in the game on this fight. And like you said, Roger, you can play MM or you can play Survival. MM will do very, very consistently good damage, as well as be better for target swapping onto the ads. Whereas Survival could do more overall damage onto the bosses, but there's also the RNG elements of the bombs. But if you do get good bomb RNG, you will be popping off like crazy.
Yeah, and this is also a boss where the trick with Turtle applies, just like it did on the Hogner, where you can lower its cooldown down to 2 minutes, and then you should have it ready for the prototype of Absolution. When it does the grip everyone in, you can just Turtle the damage, and that allows you to stay relatively close to the boss, because everyone else is going to run away, and you also immune all of that damage. So it was great once we thought about using that. It made the fight, I would say, a lot easier.
No, I agree, for sure. Having that turtle for the Hand of Destruction and just being able to, I mean, that's, I think, the number one thing, especially as a DPS player that can wipe you. Getting an extra stack of the orbs, the debuff from the Nafios is at some point just gonna end up killing you. I mean, back here, it was kind of tight on the healing. Healing might be a little bit easier, so your healers might be able to save you in this case, but it's getting a second stack of this on this fight will put you in very, very big danger. So avoid that at all costs. Being able to have Turtle for it in phase 2 as well as phase 3. You actually just need the one conduit or play Born to be Wild. You don't need both. At least we didn't back then. So you can still play post haste to get that extra movement speed in order to go to one of the further seeds or one of the further ritualists. If you get assigned to that one, post haste is nice. So you just need the conduit in order to get the cooldowns back. You don't need both. I only played one on the fight back then, and it was enough.
And that's another argument as to, even though Survival might be able to do more damage, if you're progressing the fight, perhaps it's still, you could consider going MM, because you're an extra person that, if assigned to go far away with the fixates, you're not losing out too much. You can still DPS the target that you're supposed to DPS, whereas a Survival, it's not as good. So that's another argument there. Also, this is a boss where Sigil was such a huge trinket. It timed very well, popping it on the pool and then having it for the last phase with Bloodlust and everything. That was a real huge boost to the damage of the Hunter. I mean, it's a great trinket overall, but I think it really shines on the fight that actually drops the trinket itself.
I did not have this trinket, so I can't say. But playing with Sigil nowadays, when I use it in phase 1, it is around 15 to 20 seconds cooldown when the Bloodlust gets popped. So the DPS is a little bit high nowadays for it to line up perfectly. But I can see why it was like perfect on this fight when we played it back in progression. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, again, another very, very good fight for Hunters, which is a trend across the board. But yeah, it's not some crazy hard fight, or there's not like too much to experiment with. You do play Dreamweaver, regardless if you're playing Survival or Marksmanship. And that's the only two viable options, I would say. All right, shall we move on to Livavim now? Because this is, again, a boss where the trend continues. You can play MM or Survival. Both are pretty viable. The choice we made during progression was to go for survival. But I do think it's okay as long as your group has the DPS. You can also play MM. You're not gonna pop off on the meter, but the effective DPS on the targets that you're hitting is gonna be okay. I don't think people need to feel forced to play survival, but we did do that during progression. And the big benefit of having hunters is also that you have the freezing trap, which comes in handy to CC the ads. However annoying it might be, we are one of the best classes to deal with those CC mobs.
Yeah, like the fixate ads, like how we dealt with them was that when they spawned, we would have a mass route going out from the druids. They were also playing mass route when the fixate ads were stacked up, and they would press mass route every 30 seconds in order to refresh it. But in order to just help deal with the mechanic, we were using our traps on top of the routes in order to have them CC'd for a minute instead of 30 seconds, which would overall be less globals required, as well as, follow the boss, deal with the intermission ads, and not have to worry about the CC breaking shortly after. That gives you more time to breathe, which is why we were really, really good to deal with this mechanic specifically, together with the druids.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm saying as well that MM might be a bit better for people progressing this fight, just because being ranged and being already far away from the boss and closer to the CC ad might make it easier for a lot of people, rather than, oh, my CC is about to break, now I need to run like 20 yards away, 30 yards away, CC it, and then harpoon back to the boss, and there's maybe other mechanics ongoing at the same time. Because again, this boss is not really about a DPS check, it's about getting the mechanics done properly.
In terms of like the reason why we played survival, so of course survival is known for its big AoE damage, and what we did is that we pretty much used our 2-minute cooldown on the first intermission ads. Everyone was holding the CDs for that, so that we could deal with 2 intermission ads at the same time. We had a far group and a close group, and that's why everyone was required to use their cooldowns on it in order to be able to do that. But past that point, we were using our cooldowns after the intermission phase with the ads running to the middle, as well as cleaving onto the boss. And
that was a big blast.
Yeah, survival is known for its big AoE blast, cleaving onto the shield ads, the small ads, as well as the boss. And yeah, I mean, no one does it better. If you do get good bomb procs, you will do the most overall damage. But like Roger said, you might do super, super good priority damage onto the shield ad as a marksmanship hunter, whereas the survival hunter will do more overall damage, cleaving more onto the small ads, being not having a AoE cap similar to what marksmanship does, makes it for the better output overall. But again, a little bit pad, the small ads will die anyway. But I think also playing melee on this fight felt really nice and chill.
That's very true.
It felt smoother to play melee on this fight than it did play unranged. There was a lot of time where you had to stop casting your aim shots in order to deal with a mode, run out, a lot of movement on this fight specifically, which does make it for survival, in my opinion, to be like the easier option to play and actually perform good damage-wise compared to marksmanship, where you have to think a little bit about your movement patterns, when mechanics are happening, whereas survival, you just follow the boss, deal with the modes when it's time to deal with the modes, and pump. So
yeah, and this was actually the first boss that we actually played survival during progression, right? I had heard so many people saying, oh, you're playing Hunter, it's very easy as a ranged. Melee is so much harder. Then we come in, we play this boss, and it actually wasn't bad at all. It was it was very enjoyable, not that hard to perform. Of course, survival being a little bit more okay to step away from the boss for a couple of globals, because most of your abilities are ranged abilities. So yeah, don't feel pressured to stay on top of the boss no matter what. It's okay. You're not gonna lose as much on the damage front. If you take, just make sure you place the star properly, the motes, and don't be too greedy staying on the boss.
Yeah, one of the niches survival has, even though it is a melee spec, you can kill command, you can bomb, you can serpent sting, and you can also use your aspect of the eagle in order to have your raptor strike be castable from range in some situations as well when that is needed. So the only thing you would really lose a lot of times would be your raptor strike when your aspect is on cooldown, and also your melee swings, right? And of course, on AoE situations, you want to use your carve on cooldown in order to reduce the cooldown of your bomb. But you still have a lot of tools to use, even when you're running out of melee for a couple seconds, making it the best. Like, let's say there's a lot of melees that have to deal with mechanics. Let's say Anduin, for example. If you're doing blasphemy positions, then having the hunter run out makes more sense than another melee. Which is also works out really good for the motes on the Huvim. You can take a little bit of a worse position and have some of the other melee classes stay close to the boss in order to optimize the DPS.
Absolutely. And one last thing about Lihuvim was that you can make great usage of Harpoon in this fight, especially if you have to run out and trap the ad constantly throughout the fight. And it's a very, very nice tool that is maybe a bit underused by people playing PvE. They kind of forget about it, right? A little bit. So it's a very, very nice gap closer, especially because there's so much running in this fight overall.
All right, so we've talked about all the quote-unquote easy bosses so far, and we're gonna call that part 1 of this experience of Sepulcher as a hunter POV. Stay tuned, everyone. We're going to be doing a part 2 where we're going to talk about all of the harder bosses that took hundreds of tries for us to down. So we're going to have a bit more to talk about the different specs and how our thought process went through them. If you're like us, you're going to need as many add-ons and weakquarters as you can get in order to handle the intense mechanics the game throws at you if you want to defeat them. So head over to our sponsor of this video, Curseforge. The Curseforge desktop app is the easiest way to get all of your favorite add-ons downloaded and updated, and most importantly, it supports the add-on creators directly. Click the link in the description to get it for yourself. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and comment underneath. Is it the year of the spear or is it not?
Yeah, and also if there's any other classes that you would like to hear from, maybe you want to hear more about the class that you play, let us know in the comment section below. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like Roger said, don't forget to like and subscribe.
See you on the next one.